Hello, 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 everyone. Thank you, everyone, so much for coming in. We are, as you can see, unfortunately missing a player, so we're gonna kind of change our plans. We I'm gonna make this a an impromptu interview with the creators of the game. And we will see how well I can improv an interview. This is going to be fun, guys. um, let's start off where let's start off where I was originally going to start this session off with. And we're going to start and end with ads for
Hell yeah.
us.
Hell yeah. We know what we're doing. Not now, but other times.
Yeah.
At other points in the world, we know what we're doing. Also, hi chat. Usually when we're playing a game, I can't say hi, but hi.
Hello.
Also,
We
if
get to
anyone
talk.
has any questions for us, free AMA. So if anyone has any questions about games or games that we've made, throw them in the chat.
It doesn't have to be about trash to treasure. Frankly, it only loosely has to be about games. If there's a question that you want to ask some of us, ask away.
Yeah.
Just so I assume since this is my channel, everyone knows I am Worm. Um, right up here, this is Bri, and this
Sorry,
is
I'm
Jon.
tweeting.
That's me.
There.
Yeah. I'm tweeting that there's a change of plans. Sorry.
No, you are good. And you guys run a company called Breitbart?
Yeah, we're Breitbart Games, games and art. We make tabletop role playing games about funky little guys. We make kind of weird esoteric storytelling games that are really just me gamifying a bunch of my college creative writing program. And
My
we
rights are
also
getting too hot.
have a game quietly in development about a bunch of weird space wizards, and it occupies a lot of my brain, and I'll publish it eventually.
So let's see. Oh,
That's a great
Wormat,
question.
Wormat's got a great question. Got you've you've got to just hand it to my wife. She's an amazingly insightful person, which is why awesome question first comes from her. Yeah, which game is attributed to your biggest inspiration for game development and why?
Ooh, this is a really good question. And I'm sure like Bree, I know that I'm billed as the writer designer for all of our stuff, but there's a non-zero, degree to which Bree has a serious influence on the stuff that we make. I
My grubby
tend
little paws in there.
I tend to like these days when I write the credits page for our games, I tend to write like created by Jon Boyle and Bri de Danann, and then like written and designed by, art by, layout by, etc. etc. Um, ooh, so I'm sure all that to say, I'm sure that Bri also has an answer to this. Um, I think that right now, one of my principal inspirations for games kind of like lies in the vicinity of like like a combination of J Dragon's body of work and Spencer Campbell's body of work. The Lumen system is one that's fairly inspirational to me. I think it's really cool the way that the Lumen system hands a player the ability to push the do cool stuff button over and over and over again nonstop until the end of the session, and it feels satisfying for everybody involved because all the other players have the ability to do that. And so like nobody's wildly out of balance with each other. The numbers are small, and so it doesn't present like a huge balance issue. And most of it's like kind of about you know lateral thinking and puzzle solving and like how the GM presents a situation and then lets you experiment and find out. And I think that's really, really cool.
What games
And then I
would the
also,
Lumen system be for?
best examples would be stuff like Nova Loot most recently. But I think like Slayer's Lumen Light was like the first example of Spencer using the Lumen system like that. It was kind of his pilot RPG for it. It's a love letter to Destiny too. So those are all like examples of that. And then a lot of J Dragon's body of work is built on. I say this with a big old like caveat because Jay does weird stuff with games, but there's a lot of like belonging outside belonging or no dice no masters that informs like Jay's kind of main body of work, and I love that kind of push and pull system of like spending like inconveniencing yourself, putting like introducing a complication to the narrative, get a token later on, spend a token to like with that kind of push and pull between like GM and player or like world and players is really cool to me. And so I think those are two of my kind of principal design inspirations.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true, and why Jon has sometimes such a hard time writing because he has two very different wants to make together. He's like, I want a really crunchy game and also to tell a story, and I need to figure out how that works.
I need to figure out how to resolve these two things
because they're very different. Because it's like no dice, no masters, but also I roll all the dice at the same time. So it's very interesting to work with Jon in that space because he loves two different things and they're designed so differently, and trying to find a happy medium. I've been kind of realizing in our game design recently that if you play a lot of board games, a lot of my game design comes from board games specifically and like cozier video games, as well as like storytelling specific games. Where I like weave or other things that I've run myself that I know how to like craft a improv story. But like a lot of what we really have been making, which is really interesting to me, is like we're basically if there is TTRPGs and board games, and then there's legacy games, is like in the middle. We are making basically legacy TTRPGs, and people have only been making legacy board games, and we are now starting to make legacy TTRPGs, which is basically like a lot of our more recent games, like Axolotl with a Gun, LGBT, and Trash Treasure, where it's like it's a story. It is like one campaign, but that is the game in itself, and you can do as much or as little RP as you want. There are rewards for doing RP, but if you're not comfortable with it, you could just like narrate in character like you would with a legacy board game. And allowing people to like have the amount of crunch that they want while also like being more high octane and not having to be like, I'm playing a legacy board game for 20 sessions, 8-hour sessions.
Yeah.
Instead, it's like, I want a legacy condensed story, where I don't maybe have to craft a full character. I don't have to be an improv actor to feel like I'm getting anything out of this game. And I am like picking and choosing and doing fun little things where you can maybe be a character if you want, but you don't have to be fully in character all the time. It lets you be yourself while role playing rather than like, I am always in a character. I cannot break character sort of vibe. I don't know.
Jon, I was told that you are slightly quiet relating to the other two of us, and I near the end of your question, Bri, I was seeing if I could fix that tech wise. I don't think I can. I think, Jon, you have to do that.
I have bumped up my input gain by a significant margin and moved my mic a little closer. Has that made any difference?
Yes.
Yes.
It is
okay.
more noticeably
Perfect.
louder now. Yep.
Yeah. I was going to say, Jon is
I have
always quiet.
I have my input gain scaled down so that I don't come in too hot on Discord sometimes. Every voice program has its own little foibles.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
here's Moobot saying that we're currently doing Trash to Treasure.
we're doing this. I mean, we are talking about Trash to Treasure a little bit. I think like what Bri and I are really getting at is that like we are very much inspired by a lot of kind of lightweight, fast-paced stuff that focuses more on putting storytelling power in the player's hands um, than like really sprawling, expansive stuff. And that like our desire to make a thing that you play for a long time is sort of built on the idea that you could play this for a while, but we suggest that you play it in many small pieces. It's not like a 4 hours once a week for 6 years kind of thing. It's like I hope that you play our current slate of games and some of the stuff that we have coming out in the next year or two. Like I hope that you play a like a 20 session campaign of those, and each of those sessions are like 2 hours, such that like if you didn't know what you were going to do for the next couple of weeks in like your D&D campaign, you could go well, we're short 2 people, play this for a couple weeks, like that's the kind of space that I like to inhabit, because that's kind of where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the game designers who work in that space are of interest to me. Notably, Spencer's work is really, really of interest to me in that. And also, it's why solo and duet games are really popular among the stuff, or really, really quite populous among our catalog.
Yeah, that is also another thing, is realizing that people want to have an excuse to tell a story while allowing themselves to also play a game. Because sometimes people are like, oh, I want to like play a video game and experience the story. And then sometimes people are like, I want a physical version of that thing, but by myself.
Or like with me and a partner. Like duet games have been like quite like a lot more in demand recently, it feels like. And so that's where stuff like I Crave the Loop or Terminus come in, where it's like, yeah, like go on a walk with your partner or go on a walk with your friend, and you can like do a cool storytelling exercise as part of that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where that lives. And like Bonds Between is like sit down and craft with your friends.
Yeah.
And why don't we take this moment for you to tell us what Bonds Between is?
Bonds Between is the game that we just finished crowdfunding. You can still pre-order it on Kickstarter if you want for like another month or two, probably. While Lucas and I finish writing the game and then send it to Will Yobst for editing and all of that other stuff. But the idea behind Bonds Between is that you play a neotenic, or like a modern fantasy dragon who's about this big. And you have a layer like amongst humans and other like many and varied like characters in this fantasy world, and dragons being creatures of like of hordes and hordes and layers. You've inherited one of those things that's in sort of a state of disrepair. Your layer is run down, needs some help, it's facing some threat. And it's up to you and a person whose territory you share the border of to kind of work together to fix your shared layer. So it's a game in which you cast spells with the help of another dragon to fix up your dragon house, in short.
And your dragon house can be big or small. It could be a whole building. It could be a bookshelf. It could be whatever works for you. But that's like the story of the game.
I know in one of the art pieces that you've sent several times, it's a fiery seeming dragon with a book around it, and that seems a little house-like.
Yeah.
He's flat.
Yeah.
He's just a flat little guy.
So each dragon that I've drawn for Bonds Between they're all based on a season, and they all have their own thing that they hoard. So like what like they're pictured with is like their object that they hoard. So he hoards books. He lives in books. He hoards books. That's his like thing. And he's like a cute little like flat toad like dragon. And he's summer. So like hot summer day in the library kind of vibe was what I was going for. And it was really cute. And then the spring dragon is the green one that's in like a bird bath. And for me, I was like, he hoards like sculptures for me is like cute little like sculptures or like things like that and like lives out in like a garden. So like he's got like a bird bath and like a gnome and like a bunch of other stuff. And then we've got the fall dragon who's like in like little pottery collection, and the winter dragon hoards cassettes. So it's a bunch of different stuff. So like they're all pictured with their own things that they hoard. So it's very cute. It's to like give you an idea of like, oh, I'm just like a little guy. Yeah. But the best thing about Bonds Between for me is the fact that it is an artifact creation game. So like not only are you pretending to be a little guy hoarding cool stuff with like inspirations of like the place that you're in and things that you're around, but you also
I burned this card.
Yeah. You also get to make fun little like artifact creation with a deck of cards that represents your hoard. So you like take a regular deck of cards and then you draw cards. This one. You draw cards and you make little art pieces out of them. And so whenever you make sets or runs, those are wild. So it'll be easier for you to cast magic every time you make a cool art card. So you'll have your own beautiful set of deck of cards at the end. And you don't have to go as crazy as I did. I'm an artiste and I am a little crazy.
What? No.
But you could just like draw on your cards or whatever. Like you could also just do like simple modifications. We have a whole list of modifications of cards in the draft of the game. So that if you are like, I don't know what to do with this card, well then you can figure it out based on the suit it is or the number it is. There's like a whole list. Or you could do like very simple ones like this has cat hair on it. Like it doesn't have to be hard. It could just be silly. I'm trying to find the one that I did on stream with you, John, that was super simple. Where's my freaking Band-Aid?
Oh yeah, you stuck a Band-Aid on a card because you're a dragon in the Bri and I played a chapter of Bonds Between together on stream in which our dragons lived respectively on top of a vending machine and in the kitchen in a rundown arts building on a college campus. And our principal threat that we were dealing with was a bunch of squirrels who were steadily chewing through the roof. Mm-hmm. And so, like, if that gives you an idea of the kind of, like, the level at which this game's fiction takes place. Yeah.
It's very fun.
The best level.
The best level. You can make it as silly or as wholesome or whatever. It's up to you. The story is yours, and you get to do crafts. You get to do crafts. So, it's fun. Yeah. Me and Emily were like, we need to make a craft game. Emily is our layout designer, and we could not do what we do without her. And this game is very heavily inspired by me and Emily's huge desire to have a craft game. Mm-hmm. So there is also that when it's like what games inspire you. A lot of games inspire us, but also a lot of like life inspires us. Like the things that we love. Like, oh, I love this part of a video game. How can we make that feel in a TTRPG? Oh, I love this specific like genre. Like I really want to like make something in that. Or I want to make a game all about crafts. Or I want to make a game all about going outside. I want to make a game all about cats. Like, how can we make the things that we love into a game for people that love the same thing? Is also part of it. So a lot of our game design comes from real world stuff. A lot of our ritual games do specifically, like Bonds Between and Terminus are our ritual games, which where you kind of like go through the ritual of gameplay rather than like I have to tell a like impromptu story. This is like I'm telling a story via the things that I am doing. with the physical stuff that I'm doing. And then we have other games that are more be a little guy, kill God, which is Trash or Treasure. Which is Trash or Treasure. And Axolotl with a gun specifically.
And then we also had a question. Developers also have a tendency / signature that is enveloped in their games. Is there a character, mechanic, plot, etc. that you endeavor to weave into each game you create?
I think I have three things. I think like it comes in threes. A mechanic that is very common among my traditional role-playing games is a shared meta resource, which I usually call something like momentum. Axolotl with a gun has momentum. Relic has momentum, unreleased. Trash or Treasure also features momentum. It's a mechanic that I designed for something that I haven't released yet, and then applied retroactively to games I have released.
It's true.
I designed it for something else, and I was like, oh, but it kind of works. But shared meta resource that lets you, like, all the players decide on a cool thing that happens. That's really cool. But the idea with momentum is that it's if you imagine like a video game, like a fighting game or something like that, where you build up energy to do your big cool ultimate move, or like for people who play Overwatch or Marvel Rivals, like charging up your ultimate. Like the more you play, the more you do the stuff, and specifically the more you do the stuff that your character is good at, the more you'll build up this bar, and then when that fills up, something big and exciting happens. And that's something that it's a space I enjoy exploring, especially because a lot of my games are designed to be kind of fast paced. And so having a clock that says the players do something big and cool now is kind of fun to me. And it fits that sense that a lot of our traditional role-playing games have, where it's kind of like power fantasy gaming.
So. that actually reminds me of something that Matt Colville talks about a lot, where he says that the thing that just a moment. Okay. I just all of a sudden got a Discord notification. It's like, oh, is it our player giving us an update? No, it's
no.
It is something so more mundane. But as I was saying, so one of the big things that he says about game design is that you can tell what a game is about by what the mechanics reward. Like, he will say that D&D is a combat game, not a role-playing game, because the mechanics are about combat. So I really like how momentum fits in with that philosophy, where it's just like, hey, as you do stuff, something cool happens. So it is very much a carrot to do what you kind of want them to do, which is really cool, because a lot of rule stuff is more, here's a stick to make sure you don't do what we don't want you to do, rather than here's a carrot to do what you want.
Yeah, and like momentum really exists to incentivize you in like in the narrative to kind of work together with the other players, because again, it's a shared resource in most cases that I write it. And so the idea is that, as you're talking, as each player is taking their turn, you're kind of building up this idea of what's happening in the combat. And a lot of times what people want to do, I've seen this so many times in like a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition game, where, a player spends their turn moving into position and readying an action, and another player moves here and holds this spell. And then the DM says, okay, this guy moved into position, like the big bad guy moved into position, and then the one player's like, I'm going to cast my spell, and the other player's like, I'm going to do my cool thing with my jump and a sword, and the DM's like, okay, roll a d20. And now we've spent the last 30 minutes building up to do this big cool thing that somebody rolls a 2, and now it all just falls flat, and there goes 40 minutes of our lives. Um, and I also just like as a player don't really enjoy like tactical combat that turns into like a really long slog.
Mm-hmm.
And so momentum is like kind of my game designer way to say like that doesn't happen here. Like you're going to overcome whatever is in this scene eventually. John just described my D&D playstyle. Yeah, and I like having a button that says, okay, whatever cool thing you were trying to do, even if the dice have not been kind to you for a few rounds, it's going to happen now. You're going to get an opportunity to do a big, cool, flashy thing and share in a cool narrative moment with the other folks. And it's probably going to like solve whatever problem is imminently in front of you. You know, if we're talking trash to treasure, it probably ends the scene. The number of dice that you wind up rolling as the result of momentum maxing out usually says the scene is over now. And so like you get to kind of have like your big like, oh no, we're kind of like struggling to get in, or like we're just about there and this helps push us over the edge. Or like Relic, which is a very Destiny inspired game, it's like a a way to be like, oh yeah, no, Mike, like there's a big scary bad guy in front of us. Not anymore. I'm going to solve this particular problem, and I've used that resource, and now I'll have to reckon with the consequences of that decision later.
Going back to part one of our trash treasure game, I think the times we used momentum that marked 2 rounds until the end of combat. Like I don't think a scene ever ended there, but it was like, okay, it is now at a point where it's about to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. I think so, because I mean, it also depends on like how many people are putting into the momentum tracker and how many. I mean, it's all numbers. It's all numbers at the end of the day, but like it's very much like we're in the final act of this combat, and we all get to do something cool together during the combat.
Are you ruining the secret that all role playing games are always resource management and nothing else?
Yes.
A little bit. We really,
bit.
again, also my favorite board games are resource management games. So
Yeah. There's
I've done a lot to teach. John didn't play a lot of board games before this, and I've played a lot of board games. So whenever he's like, "What if I do this thing?" I'm like, "Okay, so let's do this thing like it is done in a board game, like this." And he's like, "Oh, that's a thing already." I'm like, "Yeah." Yeah.
a number of times that I've reinvented a wheel, and Bri goes, "Yeah, this insert board game here did that," and I'm like, "Oh, cool. All right, well."
Yeah, it's like you don't need to reinvent the wheel, but but to go back to Worm's question, there's like in terms of in terms of mechanic, that's the mechanic that we usually have. In terms of plot that we usually have in our games, a lot of our background stuff in the plot of our games are very ecological focused.
Eco fantasy is I would say a running theme in our games.
Yeah. Eco fantasy. And I think that is mainly because of me. John comes up with a really cool idea for a game, and I say, "Oh my god, awesome! Here is a bunch of lore and backstory to like barf out at you," and then it always turns into like, "Okay, but we're fighting corporations, trying to make the world worse, right?"
I wonder where that fantasy comes from.
Yeah, deeply surprising that that's a creative well that we wind up drawing from frequently. Yeah. Down with Joja.
Down with Joja. But yeah, it's like it's a big like inspiration for me personally, is like being very ecologically minded in the way that storytelling works in fantasy. Because it is so easy in fantasy to like hand wave all of that kind of stuff. But like I find it so much more interesting when people deal with the like actual factual ways that the world works, and how can we apply that to a fantasy setting, and how can we make a really cool story about making the world a better place where we came, you know. Whether that be through specific ecological things like trash to treasure and excellent with a gun, or it's like through bonds between and Terminus, where you are recognizing the space, the actual physical space you are in, and realizing how you can make the community and the space you're in a little bit better in your real, or in your dragon's world.
Which
And just kind
fun,
of, yeah, just kind of like spreading goodness where we can.
fun fact goes all the way back to environmentally and socially minded British Romantic authors, because Terminus,
Yeah.
directly inspired by my own, getting
Mm.
very artsy here, directly inspired by my own educational background in specifically like William Blake, who is a British Romantic author, wrote a bunch of really really cool like poems and other pieces of work that were that basically amounted to begging the people of London to wake up and like look at the world around them, and not just in the sense of like don't let like atrocities just happen around yourself and inure yourself to them, but also like wake up and experience the beauty of the world around you. And so like there's a little of that carries forward into my especially into games like Terminus, where I'm like, maybe just go take a walk and think about how pretty trees are.
Yeah. Yeah, that was our first game. And so it's paved the way for a lot of our like, what if we care about the world though?
Yeah.
You guys should check the link that Wormat put into the chat.
That's a really good mug.
Oh my god, that's so good. Yes. Burn Jojo Mart and also the mayor's underwear.
The addition of the mayor's underwear is very good.
It's very good. But yeah,
He was too cowardly to
yeah.
get him himself.
Yeah, no. Like, go pick up your underwear. Who cares? Who cares? Also, why is it on the floor? Why isn't she picking it up and bringing it back? Why is she just leaving it there?
It's in the guest room, and she just apparently never goes in there. I don't know.
Anyways, that's beautiful. That's very funny. But yeah, I don't know.
She's trying to secure another date.
Yeah, he has to like it's like the hoodie stealing tactic, you know? Like you pilfer the hoodie, so they have to come over and get the hoodie back.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
I think it is very fitting, John, that you are into romance authors. Capital R, not necessarily lowercase r. Those are two very different things.
No, I'm into the second one.
Yes. And so the scales even out, because Bri is into lowercase r, like the like romance, and I'm like the ye olde romance.
Well, the reason why I bring that up is because sci-fi, at least modern sci-fi, we're not going to count that weird Roman text, is based out of romantic ideas. And like when I first saw the second Blade Runner, I'm just like, this is textbook a romantic story. And I had a few people be like, well, can you expand on that? And I'm just like, not really, because it hits all of the beats that makes a romance story a romance, that it's hard to talk about that. So I just think that's very fitting for you.
You're like, I could listen. Blade is a John Keats poem, actually. Now that would be fun, reducing like sci-fi properties that align with British romantic themes, and then turning them into British romantic poetic epics would be a very fun project.
I do love the fact that Lord Byron is a big part of the reason why both um, Frankenstein was written and Vampire. Both kind of written about him and how some different people think about him.
Conscript John in my Pride and Prejudice-ish game. Yes, please. I love Regency era shit.
A while ago, Wormet found an adventure where where it centers around Regency-inspired elves in D&D.
Yeah.
And she has said that that will be the first and possibly only game she ever DMs is.
That's a really good one because they live forever.
Yep.
So the pining is forever.
Just imagine the fucking like restraint and longing and pining inherent to a species that lives not for about 60 to 80 years at that period, I think, but lives for fucking millennia, you know? Oh God. Can you just like it's and now I'm just thinking about how incredibly hot it would be for somebody to quote something that you had said to them 3,000 years ago at a ball, like you know, like a love story, like fucking 4,000 years in the making or some shit because they're elves, right?
See, Remet, if you need help getting ideas for that, apparently we have found the perfect person. Guys, just wait about 4 months, and the next announcement by Breitbart Games.
We've actually canned what our plan for this summer crowdfunder was, and we're replacing it with a axolotl themed Regency one-shot game.
No, because that one would not be good enough because axolotls are real prone to dying.
Yes, they are.
Sadly, very expendable. They have very specific evolutionary conditions that must be met for them to stay alive.
John isn't on 23 because damn, we must be related. Oh my God. Yeah, no, so British Romanticism, very evident in a lot of our like ritual games and that kind of like thematic components that inspire them. And then there's just like the running theme of eco fantasy in a lot of our works, where like Terminus is like go be in common spaces and immerse yourself in a liminal space, preferably one outside, and connect with that. And Bonds Between is like think about all of like the stuff that you have, and like what about that stuff matters to you. And in a way that's sort of getting you to think about like, hey, there's all that stuff that you have, like use it. And if you're not using it and you don't care about it, then like maybe find something else to do with it, you know, pass it on to somebody who will appreciate or enjoy it. Trash to Treasure is very loudly eco fantasy.
Yeah,
It's
that
like,
one is very mean.
what if you were a tiny little guy who could eat plastic and then turn it into magic that removed microplastics from local waterways, you know, like
Yeah. I love you can tell which ones John wrote based on his college upbringing and which ones are inspired by me and the things I like.
I think we're just gonna do that as a game now when we're preparing for like a new game launch. We're like, we want you to guess which one of us had the inciting idea for this game.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
whoever's right gets a signed copy. Like,
I want you to guess who, based on what you know about us, can you guess which one made this plan? I will say a lot of them are John, but a lot of the weirder ones for sure are like I will say a lot of the Be a Little Guy Kill God were inspired by art I've done.
yep.
I think all of our Be a Little Guy Kill God were inspired by art I've done, which is very nice.
So you apparently have a calling card, Bri.
I do. I mean, I have a lot of them, but the ones that people really resonate with are little guys with weapons. People love a little guy with a weapon. Specifically, Axolotl with a gun. That was a doodle that I did on my stream. It was like a 20-minute doodle, and then Jon was like, I bet by the end of this stream, I can make a game about this guy. And he did. And now it's our bestseller.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it's sold almost as many copies as like some of our older mainline games.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at PAX Unplugged that you guys were at not too long ago, the big thing that I know from there is you guys ran out of Axolotl with a gun.
I'll never travel to a show with less than 150 of that game ever again.
Yeah. We came with 75 because we didn't sell out of like our stock. We just sold out of what we brought to the convention because we are from Minnesota and that was in Philadelphia, so we couldn't bring the 500 that we had like ordered. So we brought like 75 because we'd sold about 60 at Gen Con. And then we sold like sold out of the 75 that we had by Saturday. And then on Sunday, we were emergency stapling our own copies that we printed at Staples for people that wanted it.
So moral of the story, you should have brought all 500.
We should have brought all 500. We should have shipped all 500 to Philadelphia. No, it was crazy. It was really, really crazy. And now it is our bestseller. And I'm very excited for Treasure to get on the market because I have a feeling that while I don't think it'll fly off the shelf like Axolotl with the Gun, I think it'll be a very steady seller because one, it's really fun. I really like playing it, and when you tell someone that you are a goblin magical girl that is fighting corporations, how could you be like, I don't want to do that? Yeah. How could you say no?
So when I first approached you guys with this idea, it seemed like, yeah, this could be fun. And then we had the first part of this, and it is one of the most fun times I've ever had playing a game. 100%. What I especially love about Trash to Treasure, and maybe you guys can talk to this, is so it's a very, very player facing game. Mm. However, unlike basically every very player facing game I've played before, the DM actually gets to do stuff. Like, I get to roll dice too. And
just a fuckload of dice.
Yes. Like, one of my big things is one of the games that I've wanted to run for a long time is Numenera. One of the things that kind of stops me from that is you, as the game master, you don't roll a die ever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not a single time. And dice rolling is kind of why we play the games. Like,
you want to have stuff. You want to have stuff. Sorry, I forgot that I had a dice that looked like a bullet.
I want to roll my pile of click-clack math rocks, you know?
Yeah.
I like it when the math rocks go burr.
I collect them for a reason. They're cool. Cool. This one looks like a bullet.
I am definitely married to a dice goblin, and there is unfortunately a forever unreleased scene from something that we attempted to do where I did a visual gag where I was rolling really poorly, and someone was like, Worm, you need to get another set of dice. And I'm like, okay. And I step out a frame for a second, and I step back in, and I'm like, which one? And then I just start tossing dice bags. And I had like 20 of them. And it's just like, which one? And I start tossing all of them. Um,
Yeah.
one of my favorite visual gags. Unfortunately, that was a project that failed to launch, so will never be seen. But
That's very good. That is a very good thing. And now we're talking about dice. I'm just going through all of my dice.
so
I
My beautiful children.
I'll say that like that tendency in our game, in especially in like the recent kind of trend of games, is like um I like I try to pay a lot of attention to what the GM is in games where I have a GM. I try to pay a lot of attention to what the GM is doing, and what that looks like, and then also be very intentional about like telling them what their role in the game is, because a lot of games don't really do that. They don't do a great job of like laying out the procedure and the expectations for the game master compared to the players. Because like the game master is playing the game too, and I want the game master to feel like they're having a good time, even though from the player's perspective, what they're doing is just taking fat L's all day. Like,
yeah,
your job as the PvE environment in as the E in like the player versus environment here is to set up a situation where your players will have a good time solving a problem that you've created. And so like I if the players get to roll tons of dice to do their cool thing, I want the GM to be able to do that too. Like if the fun of the game is roll fistful of dice and say wild shit, I want the GM to have that too, you know? So like in the scene, from our first thing where it's like, yeah, it's a giant dumpster titan. It takes some of the fire that like you blasted onto it and sucks it into one of its arms and converts like a dumpster into a flamethrower from like the metal heat, and then tries to blast you with like superheated garbage. Like that's just a fun, silly, like, okay, you did some cool stuff last round, but like, oh no, problem's still here. Roll a big pile of dice. Here's a new problem for you to solve, and also I get to picture this wild thing happening. So
well, I remember in that scene in particular, you the first round you guys were kind of unfocused and didn't, I would say, didn't really take the giant garbage golem seriously until it hit one of you once, and then you're like, "Oh, we need to stop what we're doing."
Yeah. We need to stop what we're doing and kill that thing. Yeah. Yeah.
And then it never got to do another thing again. I think it survived 2 more rounds, but did not get to do anything.
Yeah. It was, yeah, we did a very good job of like, we can't get hit again. Not again.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think one of the fun things about Trash or Treasure is that like as the GM, the way that you set up a round is by rolling your big pile of dice and saying, here's a set of consequences that will happen if not addressed. And so like you get to act. You get to say like, here's what the villain does, and then the players spend their resources in response to it, and then you resolve the scene at the end of it, by checking your remaining dice if there are any, and if there's not any, then like the players responded in a certain way to your kind of actions as the GM. So like bad guy did something, and then the players spent all of their energy to make sure that they could mitigate the consequences of whatever bad guy did.
Yeah. That is like, if I had to do one thing to address, I don't even know if I would call it a problem with Trash to Treasure, but playing it this way that we are, not in the same place, it doesn't have the same kind of, oh, that this pile of dice is always staring at the players.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine you guys would have played differently if we were sitting around, say, my dining room table.
It's one of the things, and like I'm gonna pull up the Trash to Treasure draft for just a second here. One of the things that I wrote in the GM section and revised and did an editing pass on this week is talking about this in particular. Running the game. Online play. I talk very specifically about like this is a game that has a lot of physical presence and is built around that. So if you are playing online, one of the things that I recommend is that you have something in front of you that can represent the game board or the state of the game, because like at a table, I can set these dice in front of the players and say each one of these represents a bad thing for you if you don't do something about it. But in this format, like I can set those in front of me, but my camera is pointing at me from the armpits up.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I recommend is using something like Roll20 or Miro or like hell, Google Slides, right? Anything that everybody can see and interact with that you can put some squares on. It's fun to have something that people can doodle on, because one of my early play tests, I was using Miro, which is a whiteboard software for meetings. And while some other people were taking their turns, a couple people were just using their mouse to doodle what was happening, also in the same scene that we were talking about with the dumpster titan. We're doodling the dumpster titan and then doodling a goblin flying on a drone shooting out like a spirit bomb like at the thing. And so it's something that I encourage people to have if they're playing online, is have some kind of game board in front of you, because the number of moving pieces here are easy to lose track of if it's not in front of you.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so, what is your guys' favorite part of Trash to Treasure? What about it speaks the most to each of you?
Bree, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I think for me, like, the thing that speaks the most to me is that it is a game about a team. It's less like, oh, I'm myself doing my own thing, while other people are still a team, but I'm like, I care more about like me surviving than the team surviving. And it feels more rewarding to work together than it does to work separately. And I think mechanically, I think that's really, really fun. Like when we were hacking Eat the Reich, which is where a lot of the inspiration for this game came from, that was one of the things that I was really like mechanically important to me to make come out in this game, where it's like, this is a team of magical girls. They are it is you are saving the world with friendship. Garbage and friendship. And um it has to feel mechanically like you are doing that. And it can't, and which is in Eat the Reich, you still have like player turns, like people each take their own turn, and not every like people can share dice, but it's like not explicit like we're all taking a turn at the same time and we can all like bounce together and like collaboratively do stuff. I was like very much of like, bad guys go, we go. Bad guys go, we go. It's all our turn is one turn. We all roll dice together and we all allocate it how we want to. And then not just like, I am doing this and then you're doing this. So I that was mechanically, I think, the thing that draws me to it the most, and something that I don't see a lot of other games making very specific intention to have a team building thing.
That reminds me of something that almost every single nerd I've ever talked to playing role-playing games wants to do, but there's almost no games that will do that, and that is the fastball special from X-Men.
Right.
Everyone wants a really cool thing where at least two people do a thing together. And I think this game does that really well, especially because, as you were saying, there is a player turn, not,
Yeah.
Jon doesn't have a turn, then Bri has a turn. You guys have a turn.
Yeah. And that also comes from a little bit of board game stuff too, because that in certain large games, there is the computer's turn and then there is the player's turn, where you get to strategize and see like I have this and you have that, and okay, if we combo this, then we can do this and we can beat the computer in these ways. And I wanted to bring that sort of team building thing to this game, and that was something that I was made sure that we figured out how to do in a way that felt rewarding.
Yeah, and I know I'm fairly certain that at least one of the characters has a piece of gear that says something to the effect of catch. Like
Yeah.
it gives you, and this is my favorite piece of the game, which is I really like, and this is a piece that's taken straight from the Havoc engine and Eat the Reich. I really think what I think is really cool about that system is the way that it rewards you for doing nothing more than adding details to a scene. That's how you get dice, right? If I want to take an action in a scene, I can't say I do the same thing as I did last round. I cast Fireball again, GM. It's you start with a stat or an approach. Haven't decided on a final term for that for when I ship the game, but like you decide on an approach that informs the basis of your dice pool. If I'm going to take the fight approach, then like, okay, I'm getting that many die, but what does me fighting look like? We can assume that, but there's 5 other stats, right? You can restore, empathize, protect, empower. I have to like describe to you what my character is doing in order for the dice to flow. And if I want to maximize the amount of dice that I get, I also have to maximize the amount of detail that I add to the scene, which then allows other players, like Bri's talking about, to jump off of what I'm doing. So, if I'm trying to get, I'll pull up Bernie's character sheet here. Like, if I want to get the most dice out of like a protect roll, I'm like, oh, I want to take a hit for one of my allies. And so I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to use Incinerate to like use some fire and disintegrate a bunch of the bullets that are the corporate like security team is shooting at us. And then I'm like Captain America style, hold up my shield and run up and intercept a bunch. I've added like ++ blocking is what the bin shield has written next to it. I've added that detail to a scene. And so now a character could say like, oh, I'm going to scoop up some of like the molten bullets that you melted. And that's a detail that I added to get another die from Incinerate. And so like every time I play optimally for myself, I'm adding details to the scene that other people can riff off of to play optimally for their own characters. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of systems try to do that, but it seems to just come naturally out of looking at how things are with Trash to Treasure. It seems like you guys have done a really, really good job of creating the mechanics to make sure that the players organically come up with what you want them to come up with.
Yeah. It once you understand how the system runs, or like, oh, I can like choose whichever stat, and then I can choose how many ever items I want, and then I roll all those dice, and then I describe how that works, like whether or not you succeed or fail, or if how you can like help someone else. Like it's again, it's the collaborative storytelling that comes naturally with a lot of role-playing games, as well as like here are the things that I'm adding to the scene. Now let's narrate how that works. And as long as you get that sort of rhythm, as long as you when that rhythm clicks, it's like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I know how we're supposed to play this game. I get it. And that it doesn't always click with people the first time or the second time, but it also depends on like the kind of player you are, but like we've tried very, very hard to like be like, this is collaborative game. You could choose whatever you want as long as you all work together to tell the story.
Now we have the most hard-hitting journalistic chat question that is possibly the most important thing anyone has ever asked anyone, especially when it comes to game design. Odds and Ends says, "Okay, but how did you design all their outfits?"
Oh, okay. So Trash and Treasure came this Trash and Treasure came about from Jon trying to make a game of art that I had already done. I had already designed these characters, I think like a year in advance of the development of this game, because I thought it would be cute. I was like, you know what? I think it'd be really cute to have magical goblin girls. It'd be super, super cute. And I started with Bernie. Bernie is the fire one. Because I was like, oh, she's like a trash fire. Oh my God, so funny. And so it was like a little project for myself. And so I was like, okay, well, what would this cute little anime girl like wear if she was like a goblin made of trash? Like, or really loved trash or things like that. I don't, again, remember how I got inspired to do this. My community on Twitch and on stream is very goblin focused. So anytime anyone
They love
they love goblins
2022.
so much.
2022 is the year of Goblin mode, and
Yeah.
we never stopped. Like we as a stream community never stopped being in Goblin mode.
Mm-mm. No, they loved it so much, and so they just kept coming up with like, what if you were a goblin like this, or what if you were a goblin like this, and what is goblin culture like? And we're like huge lore fiends there. So I was like, okay, so like, okay, if she's a magical girl, obviously, and her hair is gonna be like a bright color. So I was like, her hair's on fire, and she's got a trash bag dress. That's adorable. And you know, she's running around and her weapon's on fire and she's got a shield. Adorable. And then I was like, okay, but now what about all of the other elements? Um, and so I started thinking like, okay, but what, and then I was like, okay, but what are like the trashes of these other elements? Like trash fire is like, oh, it's like burning trash. And then I started thinking like, then I started getting like really ecological with it because I was like, okay, then so what is like the trash of air? I'm like, it's air pollution and smog and smoke and haze. And so I then gave her outfit to be all of the things that were like that you would use in doing stuff with air, I guess, as like air filters that you would put in your house. Like that's her like she's like wearing basically an air filter vest. Guys, stop.
My hair's on fire. How about yours?
You're a
You
rock
know,
star.
that is the album that is on is the first album I ever bought myself. CD of Astro Lounge by Smash Mouth.
That's awesome.
Wonderful album.
I think American Idiot is mine.
I think
Also,
mine was
wonderful.
Avril Lavigne.
Was it Avril Lavigne Skater Boy? Her
Yeah,
big one?
I think so. I think it was a Skater Boy.
Um,
I just remember the picture. I don't remember the title.
Fun fact, I still have that American Idiot CD and case in my car to this day. It travels from vehicle to vehicle with me like a talisman.
Wild.
Anyway.
I have been listening to American Idiot a lot the last couple of months. It mostly holds up.
Topical.
There's a couple of slurs in it that probably shouldn't have been there during the Bush years. Because remember, that is an album that is specifically anti-Iraq war, and it is one of very few. Probably they should probably not have been there then. Definitely have no place there now. Other than like 3 words over the course of an album, I highly recommend.
It's great. It's a product of the early 2000s,
Yeah.
but it's a fantastic album.
Yeah.
I was a teenager when that came out. Talking earlier off screen about just happening to be in the target demographic when something came out.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of them. So
You
then
know?
it's a mix of the love of magical girls and goblins that made you say, what if we combined them?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that. It's very much I love goblins. It is a hallmark of my style of art now. I draw goblins all the time, kind of almost 3 days a week, and it's very fun. And I adore magical girls. Magical girls is what I grew up with. We talked about this a little bit off screen, with how
Yeah,
mu-
can you give us a flash of your desk, Matt?
yeah. So uh this is Cardcaptor Sakura, the best magical girl anime ever. Um, and it's my desk mat, and I love it. And I grew up on Cardcaptor Sakura. It came out in 1998. I was born in 1998, and I learned how to read, so I could read the subtitles um, of the anime. I love it so much. I've loved magical girls for my like so long, and it's a huge hallmark of like my personality and anime in general. And
So
so I thought it'd be really cute to make goblin magical girls.
you're kind of ruining my idea that you sat down with your sketch pad one day and Sailor Moon was on, and that is how Treasure began.
It-
What was that?
but I mean, you're not wrong. But like,
Is there a place in Bree's Mind Palace where Sailor Moon and Cardcaptor Sakura are always playing? The answer is probably yes.
Cardcaptor Sakura for sure. Sailor Moon is good. It is it. Some of the characters make me angry. But
My work here is done.
that one specifically. That guy specifically. But
Tuxedo Mask. Oh, Tuxedo Mask.
but Cardcaptor Sakura for sure. Which is weird because a lot of Cardcaptor Sakura doesn't really have a like magical girl sequence. They don't have. She doesn't. I'm not gonna get into it. I'm not gonna get into it. But like a hallmark of the magical girl thing is like they have to like transform and stuff into like a like superhero. And so I was like, what if their superhero outfits were trash because they're goblins? And so I made a bunch of really cute like Lolita magical girl outfits based on the different kinds of trash you find in the world. So like earth trash, like composting, which is like rotten food and cardboard and like chicken wire. And then ocean waste, which is, plastics. We all know the ocean waste. Plastics and oil and fishing line and plastic bags and bubble wrap and things that suffocate animals. Um, and then treasure. I wanted to get all the way through to so that we had fire, earth, air, water. And then I was having lunch with a friend, and she was like, "I love these magical girls, but you need a fifth one." And every magical girl, there is like a fifth character who's like is like the special one that isn't like the others, but like has some sort of connection to them. And I'm like, okay, but then you need like the heart, like very Captain Planet-esque. And I was like, okay, but what's like the pollution of the heart? And then we were like, greed.
Greed.
Greed. So she's wearing a bunch of very like regal looking clothes, like she made a dress out of velvet curtains and like an old like feather boa and like porcelain plates, and her belt is like a bunch of like diamond rings put together and things like that. And I was just like, I instead of it being trash instead of it being trash because it's waste, it's trash because it's wasted.
So you're saying that it's trashy rather
It's
than
trashy. It's trashy.
I really love the notion of being disdained by a goblin wearing a belt made of Claire's like zirconium rings.
Yeah.
Like I really love the image of that. It's fantastic. Like, oh, that's what you're wearing? And like they're wearing literal garbage. Like
They're wearing literal garbage. Like they stole this stuff from a mall that was going out of business. Like kind of vibe. Like it so it I was like the thing of the heart and like going from that like character design aspect is how I sort of designed their clothes. I could go into like a whole philosophy of how I did it because like weirdly it's like very into like what is what is ecological and what is anime and how did I make those the same thing. But I won't get into that. So I did a lot of thinking about it and then John started making a game about it. And then I was like, so here's all of the here's my blah 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 lore dump I used to make these characters. And so then we started had to make all of the areas that have problems be based on the core ecological concepts of the each individual magical girl as well. And which is why the one that we're in the preview edition is air, where there's a lot of like smog elementals and air problems, and eventually we will fight an air dragon, um, and things like that.
That's named after bad air.
That's named after bad air.
Exactly.
But also, everyone, you heard it here first. Bri has put forward the very hot take that both Power Rangers and Captain Planet are indeed magical girl shows.
They are 100%. They are. They've got the hallmarks of magical girl shows, and you cannot persuade me from it.
Fucking Super Sentai and like Captain Planet and Magical Girl anime are all just like.
Yes.
Sorry, my candle was starting to get a little much, so I had to blow it out, and it has 4 wicks. 3 of them went out very easily. The 4th one kept going. Nope.
Yep. But yeah, so yeah, Captain Planet, Power Rangers, things like that, where you have to like spin and like become a new person, and like also very Miraculous Ladybug and like all of those like new superhero shows where like, oh, I'm me type. I don't think look at me sort of vibe, and they have magical powers. It's all magical girl. That's in that genre.
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman
is.
I would say classic Wonder Woman probably, maybe not more modern Wonder Woman because she doesn't she doesn't spin anymore.
She doesn't spin anymore. She lost the transfer. She lost the sequence. Like there's not. It's not as cool when somebody just takes off a trench coat and now they're Wonder Woman. Like.
Right.
Except taking off a trench coat and being Wonder Woman might actually be more faithful to the original comics that had some, I guess we could say, undertones. I don't know how.
The author was into some things and they worked that out as they wrote Wonder Woman, and I think that's a fairly sterile assessment of. Is suit up a move and trash to treasury? Yes. So at the beginning of the game, when you get your powers, you go through your transformation sequence for the first time, and then every time you go to a new every area has 4 regular scenes, 1 downtime episode, and 1 boss encounter. And so when you're playing a zone, it's entirely possible that, like we did, you might underestimate a foe or you might roll badly. And your character might take a lot of damage. And the way that I've built the game, characters don't die because that's not really a hallmark of the kind of magical girl media we were going for. Sometimes the magical girls die in magical girl anime writ large. That's generally to serve thematic content that this game is not about.
Yeah.
So in this game, like what happens is, you very like shonen anime or like shoujo kind of like power of friendship, or like tap this deep well of power within yourself that this crisis has pushed you to, and respond to that threat in some way. The fact of the matter is, though, that your character still got hurt pretty badly. And so when that happens, the game basically says, if you did this, then you need to go do like a lower stakes scene called the downtime episode. You go and do something around the city that doesn't have like an imminent threat, and you have to transform back into regular goblins and lose some of your powers. Because the idea is that when you're like magical girl goblin mode, you are at your most powerful, but you also draw a lot of attention. The magical forces of corruption in the city and the mundane ones, like clean corp security, are drawn to you when you're like that. But when you're just a little guy, you can kind of fly under the radar and take a minute to take a breather and maybe help people in a way that you can't necessarily when you're in superhero mode. And so at the end of that scene, then you have to go from being just a little guy back to being a superhero again. So it's a few times per game of Trash to Treasure, you'll use this, you'll suit up and transform from being a regular goblin who lives in Maho City to a magical girl trash goblin with a whole like transformation sequence and stuff like that. So yeah, there is a suit up move.
There's something that I think after the game I'm going to find it and repost on Blue Sky, where one of primarily your guys' community drew the first art that I've ever had for any game that I've run. And it is the wonderful scene that just came from the fact that you guys were like, well, we need to figure out a way to get downtown. Take the bus.
Let's take the bus.
We're taking the bus.
Because none of us can fly.
Yeah, none of us can fly, and we don't have any tiny dragon familiars to carry us there. That's kind of the problem that we face right now.
We don't have any dragons to fly us there. Here it is. I found it.
Guess we're taking the blue line.
We're taking the bus.
I just definitely had to shout that out, especially because so Bri, if you will send that to me, I will repost it out, because I turned off links for basically everybody.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Usually it'll tell me that I get deleted, but it doesn't in the chat.
For some reason it hasn't been. Let's see if I can.
Usually it tells me if I get deleted, and it didn't tell me I got deleted, so rude.
It just posted 3 little asterisks for me.
Yep.
Yeah. Bizarre. To me, it's just the full link.
I posted it in Zoom chat.
Yeah, I have it too.
But
yeah, I need to grab that because it did not correctly send over. You sent the picture, which is great. It just, there wasn't a link through the Discord thing.
Oh, you could you click the picture and you say copy link.
I did, and that was like, oh yeah, no, this specific private message between the two of you that no one else will have access to. That will, yeah.
Never mind. Well then, use John's link.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely a wonderful thing, and we will love Lemon forever for doing that.
Lemon's the best. Lemon always will draw a thing from a. Well, pretty much all of the art that they do is from TTRPG shows that they've watched, and I adore it so much. They're very, very sweet.
Yeah. Lemon is a fan art machine.
Mm-hmm.
They crank out so much like actual play fan art. I am astounded, and my heart is warmed every single time a new lemon twist piece drops of something that I have been involved with in any way, or that somebody I know is.
Yeah. So I'm glad that us taking the bus made it was immortalized.
It's so fun to me to see what piece Lemon will latch onto and want to draw. I think that's the funnest part of it.
Because that was one of the few like fully, completely organic, had no real basis in in the game as we were playing that happened, and Lemon was just like, "That's the one."
Yeah,
That's the bit.
that's
I'm
the
drawing
bit.
that.
It's just so funny. We all got completely like, oh look at us, we're beautiful, and like, we have our full of our like beautiful shining trash. Now what?
I think we all kind of realized at about the same time that, wait, the description puts us like a couple of miles from where
Yeah.
you guys wanted to go.
And that's a product of the quick start because the actual game does start you at like one of the scenes in chapter 1. You can play these in any order. Like theoretically, you could do 4 boss fights in a row and then do the last sector, which requires you to play every scene in order. You could if you wanted to. You could just make it a boss gauntlet. But like, I do put the scenes in an order where it's like if you played every single scene back to back to back to back, it would sort of make sense that there's a story unfolding as you play them. Mm-hmm. But like in the full book, you start the first scene after the intro sequence is your school's on fire.
Yeah. Your school's on fire, fix it. Yeah, like in the quick start, it's like, and we are in a cave, and we have to get downtown. Okay.
So John, soon you were gonna run us through the gauntlet, right?
Sorry, I was really not ready for Emily's callback to the earlier joke, but it really did get me.
My school's on fire. How about yours?
That's the way I like it, and I never get bored.
Never get bored. You can't get bored at Goblin School, let me tell you.
You can't. Again, that's another piece that I wrote about in the Trash to Treasure draft, where it's the world of the game.
No, I seriously, I would love it if at some point once things are finalized, if John, you or maybe even you, Bri, can run us through a Trash to Treasure. I think everyone would enjoy that.
It would be really fun. Gauntlet. A boss gauntlet would be fun. Mm-hmm. It would be very fun. There's 4 dragon bosses and then a 5th final boss, which isn't a dragon, sorta.
Isn't a dragon, sort of.
It's okay. It looks like a dragon. It is not a mythical dragon. I will say that. But it basically it goes fire, earth, water, air, because air gets you downtown, and then in downtown you have to go and fight the big bad corpos in downtown, which is the final boss fight. So fire starts at your school where you are, and then you get like closer and closer to downtown. Mm-hmm. Through you fighting the 4 elemental dragons. And our quick start just happened to be the 4th dragon, because that's the first one we wrote.
Yep.
No, I really enjoy it. It's a fun game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, what other games have you guys made? We've talked about Trash to Treasure. We've mentioned Axolotl with a Gun a few times.
Name still gets me. I published it a year ago.
It's fun to say.
It's fun to say. It's good to say. Yeah.
So like Axolotl with a Gun is more or less Trash to Treasure light, mechanically speaking. Like it's a lighter weight version of Trash to Treasure, that's designed like solely for one-shot play. And there is like we want to make some revisions to it to like lean a little bit into like the kind of roguelike feeling that Axolotl with a Gun has. Because roguelikes are a favorite video game genre of mine, and I kind of like the idea of, again, Axolotl with a Gun will never be your forever game because it's designed to be about 2 hours of high octane, say Looney Tunes shit to your friends about weird South American like salamander adjacent creatures with guns shooting up robots that are analogs for um, Silicon Valley venture capitalists.
What? You made a game about neocolonialism? No.
What? No, couldn't be me.
We don't
Uh,
have we don't have political things to say in our cute games. We don't.
Axolotl with a
That is
gun.
maybe the biggest lie you've ever told me. Ever. Like, I get the sarcasm, but I can't let that stand.
There was a part of me that I was like, I'm writing this game, and I was like, I don't necessarily want you to just mow down a bunch of like human people, because that is
Yeah.
a little too much, I think, cognitive dissonance occurring
Mm.
here with like, ah, cute little guy and silly little gun, and you're mowing down people.
Yeah.
And so I was like, robots, and I was like, well, what's the robots deal? Why are they doing this? And I was like, I don't know, and I was writing it at the time that like AI was really kind of like rearing its ugly head in early 2024, and we were coming off the back of like the GPU and crypto farming, like the GPU like price crisis
Yeah.
and scarcity, and like the back end of like crypto farming consuming all of the water and electricity on the planet.
Now
And
that's
so
just
that
GPT.
now instead of crypto farming, it's just Chat GPT doing the exact same thing, and I hate it. Which is reflected in that game's villains, because most of them are like, well, why are they attacking a bunch of neotenic salamanders at their lake? And I'm like, well, probably because they're trying to use it as coolant water or something for their own machinery, or for their generative AI Godzilla monk like mecha that they're trying to build out in the woods, like on the one hand silly, goofy, on the other hand a little bit of commentary about about Silicon Valley venture capitalism.
I mean, there hasn't been a governmental proposal that every crypto farm needs to have its own power plant dedicated to it.
Don't examine it. Don't examine it. Don't think.
Sorry.
Don't examine.
I meant AI server farm needs to have its own coal power plant. Unfortunately, that actually has been floated as something that the United States needs to do in the current administration.
Absolutely insane.
That's fun. But other games that we've worked on.
Yes, other games.
Other games. Terminus was our first game that we worked on. We talked a little bit about it and what it's a thing. That was our very first game. And it really launched. It gave us a lot of ammunition to keep going. Our next game that was for crowdfunding was I Crave the Loop, which is a very, very different style, and is a single and duet game about eating a snack and running away from an eldritch cat, which is very fun.
I think the way that I describe it is it's frequently to people is it's a roguelike RPG about pet ownership and snacking.
Yeah.
Because if you have ever owned a pet in your life, you know well the experience of developing a sixth sense for open containers of food in the house, and the relative proximity of your animals. Like if I walk out, to the breakfast table in the morning, and I set down a plate with a piece of toast with some scrambled eggs on it, and I walk back to the kitchen to fill up my water bottle, in my head, as I leave that room and turn my back on the eggs and toast, I'm running a calculus. I'm like, when was the last time that I saw Ghost and Hatch, or our two cats in this house? And are any of them in my line of sight? Yes, no. If not, how far away from the toast do I think they are? And do I think that's enough time for me to fill up my water bottle, get back to that table to shoo him away from it if he's in the living room? And that experience, that's what I Crave the Loop is about.
Yeah. So yeah, that was our second like crowdfunded game. I feel like we made other games in there, but I don't remember.
Well, we
I don't think so.
could.
Crash Cafe.
Oh, we made Crash Cafe. That's right. We made Crash Cafe and Beloved in that time. And that was a lot chiller of a time. Which was nice. We also have 3 one-page games as well. Kobolds and Trenchcoats, Monsters and Microphones, and Create Chaos, which are all lasers and feeling sacks that were pre-Terminus and have been grandfathered into our catalog when we made Breitbart versus just Jon writing games.
Yeah,
And
there was the era of like Jon writes games and hires Bri to do freelance art for them, and then we did Terminus, and I was like, "Hey Bri, do you want to be my business partner?" And she was like, "I'm already your business partner, idiot."
I'm already your business partner, idiot. Yeah. Very much so, yeah. And then I Crave the Loop happened. And then we found out we were going to be vending at Gen Con, this is last year. This is last year. And Jon had written a small version of Axel with a Gun and LGBT, or Longsword Glockbat Taser, which were very fun, tiny little games. And we were like, we need more games than just our one-pagers, I Crave the Loop and Terminus, to be at Gen Con to have a booth. So, in about a few weeks, me and Jon made 5 books.
Yeah.
We printed I Crave the Loop. We printed Axel with a Gun. We printed LGBT, and we printed Beloved. And we had and started another book. It was kind of crazy. And so that has been our catalog for a very, very long. By a very, very long time, I mean from Gen Con until now. That is the printed books we have. And then now is Trash or Treasure and Bonds Between. And Tipsy Whispers. Because Jon made Tipsy Whispers in between them, which is, I will let Jon talk about that. But pretty much all of our games that we've talked about is, we have a small catalog, but we do a lot with it.
And yeah. I mean, you, in the last 3 months, you've done 2 Kickstarters that were both successful. Trash to Treasure and now Bonds Between. So you guys are quickly expanding that small catalog.
Yes. That is our hope. Because after that sprint of games, we were like, we need to plan out our stuff a little bit better. We also had like plenty of things on the docket for what we were going to be doing at post Gen Con, which was Trash to Treasure. And a lot of the other games that we've been talking about, Relic, that is not yet created, but Jon has been thinking about for forever, and Tipsy Whispers and a few other things. But yeah, pretty much.
Relic exists in a bunch of sketchbooks and in a Google Doc, and it's not playable unless I'm running it for you.
Yeah.
It's getting there.
Yeah. So
how many streams have you done making Relic? I think about half of the ones that I caught you doing, Jon, were talking about that.
Yeah. You've mostly done Relic on stream.
Yeah, I don't do a lot with Relic off. The thing is, like, by volume, a lot of what I do on stream is Relic, because I don't have a lot of time to work on Relic outside of stream. So then it comes around to like Monday and Thursday evenings, and I'm like, I'm gonna spend like an hour noodling around on Relic, man.
Yeah. Yeah, because the hard ass is like, you have to finish the treasure draft. You have to.
Correct.
You also have to finish the Bonds Between draft. You have to.
Yeah. I basically spent all of January writing the bonds between, with the help of our co-designer Lucas.
Yeah.
Bri, I did cut you off, so I wanted to go back to there. You were starting to say something when I started talking about Jon doing Relic on stream.
I don't remember.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure you had the chance to get back to what you were.
I don't remember. I was just rambling about all the things that we've done. We haven't really we were slow going for like we haven't, I guess I will say, Breitbart hasn't been an official company for 2 years yet. And we have a lot of games. And we've done 4 Kickstarters so far. 4 Breitbart specific games, and we are gonna do probably 2 more again this year.
Yeah.
So I have a question about the future of Breitbart games, and maybe you guys don't have an answer for this, but is Breitbart Games going to be the label that Jon and Bri make things under, or is it eventually going to be other people either come to you and say, "Hey, I want to publish this. Will you help me with that?" Or will someday Jon and Bri go, we want 2 more games this year. We can work on one of them. Let's find someone to write another one with us.
That's a great question.
Yeah. It is honestly, like, it's something that we would like to do. It is something that we would like to do, is publish other people's games in addition to mine. Because, like, in the creative sense, like, I love the stuff that Bri and I make, but I love a lot of the stuff that every time I go to a convention and meet some new people, I hear just about the coolest game ideas. Like, someone will walk up to me and pitch me the coolest thing I've ever fucking heard of twice a day at PAX Unplugged. And it would be, I would love to, like, be in a position, and we're steadily kind of, like, finding ourselves in a position where we could facilitate being like, okay, so you have that, and I know how to make a book, and I have Bri as a fantastic, like, art director, and I know a bunch of people who do layout design. I would love to, like, take this thing that you have that's a draft in a Google Doc right now, and, like, I'm a professional editor, Bri's a professional artist. We can make that make that a book that people can, like, pick up and play. And so, yeah, like, that's something that I would like to do, like, from a creative sense, and also just, like, from a business sense. I can only write so many words a year. And so being able to intersperse, like, that kind of flow of, like, publishing the things that Bri and I make with publishing a work or 2 from other people here would be really, like, I think, satisfying.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the
100%.
first one is definitely what you guys are thinking of, is getting to a point where people can pitch it to you rather than, hey, we've got this idea, we don't have time to work on it, let's hire someone to do that.
Yeah. I mean, there might be a world where we have a really cool idea and we get, like, a person to, like, co-write with Jon, basically, or we're like, which is basically what we did for Bonds Between. Where we had this really cool idea for Bonds Between, and we were like, we want to work with Lucas and Emily, in a, like, writerly capacity to create Bonds Between. So we already have kind of, like, pitched an idea to someone else and be like, hey, do you want to be our co-writer on this project? I don't think there's ever going to be, at least for probably the foreseeable future, unless we unless we increase our workload so much in the next few years where we're like, we can't touch this, you have to give us a finished game and we will just publish it for you. We would love to have games where we can be a part of the creative process on it. It doesn't have to be most of the creative process, but it like, just for us to, like, be like, does this fit with our catalog? Does this fit with things that we believe in? And does this feel like a Breitbart game? And Jon's a great editor. I'm a pretty good art director, I think. So like we can still get our like grubby mitts in it and be like, here's a way to like tweak it. Here's a way that this is something that we really like. What do you think about this? Like, because the way that we creatively work together is collaboratively. Yes, I do art and Jon does writing, but as we've already talked about with Trash to Treasure and a lot of our other games, it's a conversation of creativity, and it bounces back and forth of how it gets created until it becomes a final product that we both love. And that is something that we would want to have if we have some other people on our team as well, or come to us and want to like, hey, I want to fully make this thing. We want to have that, be able to have that ability to have that creative back and forth. We're not going to be a strictly publishing company where it's like you come to us with a finished game and we make it a thing. We want to be part of that creative process.
I mean, that's all awesome.
At least for now. But yeah.
Once you start getting that WotC money, then maybe things change.
Yeah, maybe things change. Who knows?
When you are the one thing keeping up the largest toy company in the world.
But like even where we are currently, we are even like sometimes we get pitches from people or like other game designer friends that are like, hey, I want to finish this and I want to finish with you guys. And we're like, 100%. How do you want to do that? And it really comes down to a lot of what we do is very organic. How we became business partners was very organic. How we make games is very organic. And it just kind of leads us to things. And we're like, oh my God, we've made how many books? And it feels, it's a lot of work to do it, but it feels organic creative. So it's not like we're looking for pitches, but already not to like talk about anything that isn't a thing yet. Already people have been like, hey.
Hey, you guys run a publishing company. I'm like, wow, yeah, we sure do actually, don't we? I do run a publishing company.
And I'm like, yeah, I guess we could talk about that and have games made that aren't Jon is just doing it himself in a corner until I look at it and say, maybe you could do this better. And he's like, you're right.
What you're saying that not every game that you'll ever publish is made in that room of fairy lights and soft purple light?
No, I want to give Jon a break at some point. Not yet though.
Yeah, Jon gets to go on vacation eventually.
I
will say, like, Emily commented.
You have a quota of golden eggs that you need to get from Jon first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then he can retire and be an editor. He needs to be burnt out creatively before that, though.
I mean, Emily said Breitbart seems to me at least to have a really nice rhythm, and I would say, yeah, I would comment that Breitbart Games is built to accommodate the physical reality of being two disabled people.
Yeah, I will say it's the physical reality of two disabled people who are really bad at stopping.
Yeah.
We have too much gumption and our bodies hate that about us.
That doesn't sound like every message that Bri has had to put up on Discord for the past as long as I've been in the Discord.
That doesn't like, sorry guys, I have to take a week off. My body hates me. Yeah, no, sometimes I forget I'm disabled. And then I'm like, right, I'm disabled. I shouldn't just never sleep.
Yeah.
I shouldn't do that.
I think the way
sleep more.
Yeah. I mean, I do nowadays. It's only a little annoying. But yeah. 2025 is the year I take care of myself. I say, having said yes to a bunch of projects that I have to finish before next week. Yay!
But yeah, Breitbart Games is something that right now is mostly the last, I would say, 2 years has been Bri and I proving that we ourselves can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have proved that we can do it. both to ourselves and to some of our design, like game design friends and stuff, who are now like, hey, some of whom have been like, hey, I have this old draft lying around that I haven't quite gotten around to finishing. Would you guys be interested in publishing it? Or like, would you guys be interested in carrying
Finishing
some
it.
of our games? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them I'm like, I personally need this game to be real so that I can play it.
Mhm.
And if I feel that way about it, I know that other people will feel that way about it.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. So, to answer your question, yes, eventually there will be games that Jon isn't the sole writer on, and maybe isn't even the main writer on. And I'm also probably not the main artist for. We've already been kind of talking about hiring other artists to help me with the deficit for other things. But
yeah.
I mean, that's
We'll see.
exciting.
Yeah, it is really exciting. We don't have a whole lot of budget because like, again, we are a company that is doing pretty okay, but like we don't have the budget to like sustain ourselves. Like it's still very much like kind of a part-time salary, but a full-time job.
So what you're saying is it's like being a Twitch streamer, which all three of us are. Where
Yeah.
I saw some stats recently that I'm in like the top 4% of Twitch creators, and it's like that's awesome. I can't guarantee a payout every month, so
Yeah, I'm in the top, I think 1%, and I do get a payout every month. Yay! But it's not a huge one.
I mean, to get a payout, it's $50.
Right. Exactly.
So as long as you cross that threshold, which is yay, I can get dinner for two at a fast food place.
Yeah, right.
Dinner.
And
I like to call it creative audacity. Being disabled and working yourself too hard. I call that creative audacity.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's right. Yeah. But yeah. The future is looking bright. I think. It's looking bright, Bard.
I was trying to figure out the best way to make that joke, and it's just like I could go the pun route, or I could try and make it an actual super funny, and you beat me to it.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's your slogan now.
Just looking forever.
Bright Bard. Yeah.
It's a very like 90s television commercial slogan.
It is. That's exactly. But yeah, I don't know. It's going well. Excited to make games. Excited for our next one, I will say. We talked about it on Jon's stream. But our next game that we are making is a new and improved extended universe edition of Axolotl with a Gun. That is our summer project.
So more creatures with more weapons?
It's still Axolotls with it, but it is a campaign mode. Like campaign mode version, like kind of Trash or Treasure-esque, where it's like a campaign of things. Plus a 2.0 version of Axolotl with a Gun already, because we're already planning on doing that anyways. And then maybe some little extra expansions like Axolotl with a Gun Dumb.
You could always do the Axolotl with a McQueedle.
We've been pitched so many little expansions, and I'm so excited. We're also planning on doing a game jam, which is basically like little guy with a weapon game jam. So you make your little guy with a weapon game in the same, like, using our rules, basically. And then we'll have a giant compendium of little guy with weapon games. And it will be so much fun.
Somebody was like, rhino with a ray gun. No, it's not a rhino-sized ray gun. It is like this big, and you are a full-size rhino. And I was like, Amazing. Pack it, ship
Perfect.
it, submit it to the jam. I don't care if you've never written a game before. Submit that shit.
Yeah. Someone said it was like you are a cow with a I can't remember what a cow I think
It
it
was
was like
called Steak
it was
Knife,
called
and it
steak
was
knife, yeah.
about being a cow fighting back against the beef industry. And I was like, my God,
That
that's brilliant.
that sounds like the song "Cows with Guns."
Yeah, their secondary pitch for the name was to keep it in the X with the X was bovine with a bazooka. Um,
I love it. I love it.
If you guys have not heard the song "Cows with Guns,"
I have not.
you would love it. Um, yeah, that's something you guys can do after stream.
Yes.
Is go
Well,
go listen to "Cows with Guns." It is ridiculous and it's really weird, partially because the singer. I saw an interview with him once, and he grew up doing music in the same area as like Kurt Cobain before Kurt Cobain and co moved to Seattle.
wow.
Yeah, that started apparently in rural Washington.
that's crazy.
And then this comedy song about and cows against the authorities.
Love it. We shall be little animals against the authorities. The axle with the gun way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think you put it best earlier. Little guy that kills God.
You are a
Exactly.
little guy. Go kill God. Like,
Kill God.
It's
Yep.
it's the classic anime. It's the classic anime, like arc. You're like, we're just a bunch of friends who go to school together, and then at the end of it, it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna kill God.
We're gonna kill God now.
Oh, the Tiny World Game Jam entry that we did. Tiny World, the Tiny World Game entry, Game Jam entry. So this was
It was called Skull of the Primordial.
yes,
Was the game that we made.
Skull of the Primordial. It was
Holy hell. I don't know how much of that just went through. There's a dude who has a motorcycle that one of his favorite things to do is when it is fully dark here, just go screaming down our street. Like,
oh.
I think he has surpassed 100 miles an hour on our street that has a speed limit of 30.
Oh God.
It sounded like an elephant. You know, yeah, it was. Yeah. So sorry. Back to talking about your Primordial game.
No, it's all good. I wrote it for Vidica Valetti's Tiny World RPG Jam, which was something that I was put onto after I came back from MagFest this year because I spent the weekend basically hanging out with Vidica, who's very, very cool. And the idea was that you make in 8 pages or less, whatever that means to you, whether that's one sheet of 8.5 by 11 cut and folded into 8 zine pages, or whether that's like an 8-page, digest, like two sheets of paper. Make a world in 8 pages. And again, because I have Relic perpetually on the brain, I wanted to do some world building for that because I'd hit the point, like in writing the game mechanics, where I was like, okay, I kind of need to know what the world is about before I can continue writing the game. And so I wrote that, and it's basically Skull of the Primordial is a genre agnostic like setting zine that you can use basically in any like kind of science fantasy setting. The idea is that there's this big like skull of a dead machine god drifting through space, and the machine skull is slowly being devoured by the substance that was once its blood. And that like divine ichor slowly devouring itself is itself the fuel for magic in that world. So they have to like fight the residents of the skull have to like fight against the inexorable tide of this thing trying to go through the natural life cycle of the machine god, like recycling itself into its component parts to be made into a new machine god. In order to keep their superpowers to fight against the things that unfortunately killed all of the machine gods. So there's nothing left to make them anew.
So, not in any way, shape, or form influenced by Guardians of the Galaxy.
It is.
It is a little bit nowhere. It's a little bit nowhere.
That was my pitch. The nowhere part.
No, it's the best part. Tipsy Whispers has been mentioned a couple of times. Jon, why don't you talk about that?
Tipsy Whispers is a game in a series similar to Crash Cafe, which is inspired by Oliver Darkshire's kind of like roll and write RPGs, where it's basically just like, here are 3 stats that represent 3 axes of like tension. Roll a couple of d6 to generate an event, which will adjust your stats. Keep doing that until a stat maxes out and the game ends. They're role playing games that you can play by yourself or with a couple of friends. Bri and I had a very fun game of one of the Oliver Darkshire ones was Gay for the Pirate King.
Mm-hmm.
And that really launched those into popularity because he wrote that at a time where Our Flag Means Death was the first season of that was airing, and it was very popular. And so Crash Cafe and Tipsy Whispers are both kind of built out of that style of game where I'm like, roll a couple of dice. Here's a premise. Here are 3 stats. Roll a couple of dice. Generate an event. Adjust your stats and the fiction of your game accordingly by describing it to the other players if you're playing multiplayer, or writing it down if you're solo. And then do that until your stats max out and the game ends. The fiction of Tipsy Whispers is that you live in an old house and you pull up a floorboard, and beneath it is a speakeasy full of immortals that has been partying since the 1920s, or maybe since the beginning of time. You're not sure which, but they look like a bunch of 1920s flappers. And it's a game about trying to stock their speakeasy up, like this strange, magical, haunted speakeasy that lives in your walls, your basement, your butler's pantry, trying to stock them back up before the people who live around you figure out that there's some kind of fountain of youth, like Dionysian fountain of youth in your basement, and before they party so hard that they wreck your house. And that's the story of the game. It's designed so that like it can end a lot of different ways. Perfect for like a little 30 or 40 minutes. Like you're like, oh, we have a connecting flight, and I have 2d6 in my pocket because I'm a tabletop gamer and I'm never without 6-sided dice. And so you can just be like, all right, well, quick round of Tipsy Whispers.
I have no idea what that's about. I couldn't at the drop of a hat start 5 different campaigns. Nope. Nope.
Couldn't do that.
In fact, when we were thinking of ideas for how to change this, the idea of making this a random one shot did come up, and yeah. So, what is the fiction behind Crash Cafe?
Crash Cafe is about a bunch of goblins who run a cafe together. You a little bit in the same way that like in Bonds Between, your dragon inherits a rundown horde. You're a bunch of goblins who basically are like, oh look, an empty like used to be cafe in the middle of downtown. Well, that's ours now. And you start fucking slinging bugs and glittered rocks to people because you heard that if you do it good enough, you get a 5-star rating, and you have no idea what that means and no idea how to run a cafe, but you know that you can get stars for it, and this motivates you. And that's what Crash Cafe is about.
Yep.
So what you're saying is it is the canonical sequel to Trash Treasure.
It's not in the same universe.
Like
After they
Crash
say
Ca-
after they
I
save the
should
city.
I should just sneak like I haven't published the book yet. I should just sneak Crash Cafe into the background of Trash to Treasure.
You should.
You should.
And
Stick it into
there's
the
5
art.
people, so obviously if they do a cafe good enough, each get 1 star,
Yep.
and they have their own star,
Hmm.
and so they have to get 5 stars because
There's 5
there's
of them.
5 of them.
Okay, but I do actually want to do a Crash Cafe one shot that's we're all playing the Magical Goblin Girls.
That would be very cute.
They are now retired magical goblin girls for that Crash Cafe.
Mhm.
They were only magical girls for a very small time, and now they run a cafe together. It's everyone's favorite fanfic.
My alternative pitch is that it's like a cat cafe, but for the tiny dragons.
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
so cute.
why not both?
It's all the same. It's all the same universe. Also, axolotls with the guns are also in that universe.
So this is taking place somewhere on the planet, somewhere in South America, like the analog for South America in this setting. There are a bunch of there's just a swath of wilderness that all of the robot baddies are like, do not go there, danger, bad, off limits.
Yeah.
And they're like, why? Is there like radiation, like a particularly active military, like a powerful wizard who lives there? They're like, no, something is wrong with the lizards who live there.
So it sounds like we've just figured out our next collaboration. At some point, Jon will be running us through Crash Cafe as Magic Goblin Girls.
Oh, that would be so much fun.
That would be amazing.
We just need 3 more people.
3 more people.
That is why it will not happen until 2027. Is we need 3 more people.
Really, only 2 because Crash Cafe is GM-less. So
There we go.
Perfect.
So maybe late 2026.
exactly.
How we have to get 2 people to commit. That'll be hard. We all know that's hard in TTRPGs.
I mean, that's why we're doing this interview right now. There was a last-minute schedule conflict.
Hey, it happens. It is what it is.
I mean, there is a one-shot that I'm going to be doing for some friends that we first planned it like a year and a half ago. Like it is Christmas themed because that's when it was originally going to happen, and they're just like, yeah, we need to find 2 more people. Great, and it just hasn't happened yet. They can't find 2 people who can make the schedule because there's like 1 time a week that all schedules align, and then
Yep. Ugh. Oh, TTRPGs.
but luckily that's one where it's just like, okay, I will be the GM, and you will do the scheduling.
Fair.
So other than Breitbart Games, what do you guys do? So you guys stream on Twitch, both separately and together. What do you guys stream?
Game design mostly for me. I used to stream games a lot, and I have found that while I enjoy streaming games, I tend to enjoy streaming games like just in a lower pressure environment. Like I just like streaming games in Discord to my friends these days, or very occasionally for like, a new Destiny release or something like that. I'd be like, fuck it, we'll do a game stream today. but I really like the kind of come tell me about what you've been doing creatively lately while I work on creative projects that I'm allowed that I feel like I can work on stream, and it's really nice to have like the sounding board that chat is, and to like have chat pitch me cool ideas, or have somebody be like, you should do this, and be like, absolutely not, and here's why, and that helps me understand my game better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's very fun. Your streams are very, very fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed them. And since I gave Bri a shout out earlier, it has been long enough that I can do that with. Well, unfortunately, Resident Bard hasn't said anything in chat, so it is not going to let me easily tag Resident Bard.
There we go. Yeah, but no, my streams are very very low key, kind of by design, and I think they're fun.
And Bri, I think you recently did a survey about this very question for yours.
Yeah, yeah. I do a lot of different things. Mostly centered around art specifically. I do some video games every once in a while. I do a lot of collaborative stuff. I kind of just do. Art is the main thing that I do, and then sometimes I do a variety of stuff, whichever kind of strikes my fancy, and what we kind of as a community are like, it'd be super interesting to try this, or to take a break and do this. So I don't know. It's I like to say that I stream. My stream is a community project. It is not just me doing a thing, as where I'm like, I am the one like pressing the button and like being on camera, but like I take into consideration like where I'm at, and also what other people are like interested in, and like what our zeitgeist is at the moment. And stream that stuff. There are some times where I'm like, I can't do that because I have a lot of client work, which is kind of where I'm at right now. And I'm doing a lot of commissions and client work on stream, kind of only. But I like to try to do more community focused stuff.
Not me taking one of your Friday nights and have commissioning you for something. That's not something I did, and by not I mean it totally is.
There's also like the once a year where like Bree should play a hard spooky game that Jon is good at.
Yeah.
Where we do that. Usually like chat's like we should make Bree suffer through a Metroidvania game.
Yeah.
Well,
there's some times where people are like, let's make Bree suffer, and I'm like, okay.
I mean,
but like in a fun way.
Yeah, in a fun way.
There is an idea that I've brought up a couple of times and have yet to find. Ouch. Okay, everything's still plugged in. Wonderful. I accidentally karate chopped my my earbuds.
Oh no! I hate when that happens.
So not only did that hurt my ears, but it's like, oh, I have to make sure I'm still plugged in. And so an idea that I had that I think would be really fun is to have a couple of streaming friends and do a sleepover style stream where we all stream Phasmophobia in pajamas.
That's fine. I've never played Phasmophobia.
Where Matt says it became a horror game about a year after it came out. It went from a this is horror as you hunt ghosts to, oh, it's actually scary.
Interesting.
But
interesting.
I think you guys might like it. Jon, I think you definitely would like it. It's you go into a house and you figure out what kind of ghost it is, and try not to let it kill you.
Right.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
One of my favorite games ever is Metroid Fusion. Just because the first time you play that video game, and you're going through the Metroidvania, the typical Metroidvania thing of like, oh, here's the reason we've contrived for Samus to have lost all of her powers again.
Mm-hmm.
And this time it's that you were attacked by a weird, like, self-replicating parasite that was trying to, like, kill you and take over your body, and they managed to save you with a Metroid vaccine, and yada, 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 yada. So you've lost all of your powers. And then, like, the science station where they saved you, you're like, all right, well, cool, I'm feeling better. Later, guys. And then it, like, explodes and goes dark, and you're like, oh, I should probably go back and check that out. And then the instant that you get there, you, like, you're there for 5 minutes, and somebody blows your fucking ship up, blasts the hangar open while you're, like, that you arrived in, and maybe probably an hour or two into Samus being on there, but like 15 minutes into you, the player, playing that game, you discover that the thing that is hunting you is you at full power. And the first time you're like, the encounters are scripted. And so, like, you know where they're going to come in the second, third, fourth time you play Metroid Fusion. But like, that first time that you're playing, fucking terrifying. You have no idea when that thing is going to show up. Any door that you open, you're like, oh my god, Samus X could be on the other side of this. And so, such a good game.
So question
Fantastic.
is, do you play Samus or do you play the self-replicated version?
Actually, both. You play Samus, but then at the end, some stuff happens, and you wind up playing briefly as Samus back at full power with your standard kit.
Nice. I always like those, especially when it when it would be like at the end you find out no, you're not the real Samus. You never have been.
God, that'd be wild. You're a clone. You actually died. They just cloned you.
Or I was playing Mothership with some friends, because capitalist horror in space was really fun until the beginning of November, when nope, we had to stop that. But the first adventure, everyone was stuck in a time travel loop, and there were copies of each of them that they had to kind of avoid. And the end of it, they fought the others, and they're like, "Wait a second, are we the originals?" And it's just like, "No." It wasn't even question mark. It was, "Nope, you're not." Where are the originals? Who cares?
Fun.
So yeah, let's see. That happened in our D&D game. The wizard learned he wasn't the real original version of himself. He was a clone.
Oh my god, how's that for a D&D character concept? A wizard who's a simulacrum but doesn't know that they're a simulacrum.
That's so scary.
I don't remember if it's I think it's Rime of the Frost Maiden. They have that. One of the NPCs is simulacrum, and at some point you can actually meet the non-simulacrum, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, you met one of my simulacrums. How are they doing?" It's just like, "Yeah, it's no big deal. Tell me about them." "Oh, they thought they were me." Well, of course they did.
Buck wild, man.
The player
gave the GM a real "I'll figure out my character as we go" backstory. Oh, what a gift to a GM. I love a list of bullet points, and I will figure it out.
That's my favorite way to make a character, honestly.
Yeah, I am starting a new D&D campaign next Saturday. So a week from tomorrow. And one of the players, this all started off as they wanted to play a bard, and very specifically a bard who worships Umberly, who is an evil ocean
goddess of the deep. Yep.
But as people point out, no, Umberlee's evil. They go, no, that's just my mom. They're just misunderstood.
She's just misunderstood.
And so, what I'm really looking forward to is in that campaign, that's basically going to create an aspect of Umberlee who's chaotic good eventually, rather
Yeah.
than chaotic evil.
Yeah.
And since this is going to be my first campaign fully in a world I've been working on, that's just going to be canon for all of my future D&D games. Is there's a good aspect of Umberlee.
Yeah.
Just bopping around the world.
You can do like they did in the most recent season of Dimension 20 Fantasy High. Like,
Yeah.
if you simply believe hard enough that a god or goddess is a certain thing, they do wind up being that.
Yeah,
They do be that at some point. Yup. That bitch.
That bitch.
So, what is your guys' favorite game to play of tabletop games? And have you played many tabletop games? Let's start off with that. Have you guys played many systems?
Yes. I have played quite a few systems at this point. Not quite so impressive a resume as like Will Jobst, who sometimes will be like, I'm playing a tabletop role-playing game every day for the next like 10 days. And I'm like, my God, man.
That's crazy.
So not quite to that degree, but I do like if I buy a game, I try to play it at least once. Even if that looks like me kind of like goldfishing a run of it just to like fudge around as a tabletop designer. But like games that I've actually sat down and played, I've played a fair few. One of my favorite ones that I played recently was Loot by Spencer Campbell. It's a really straightforward kind of like West Marches style fantasy role playing game. Your characters are paper dolls defined entirely by little loot cards that you put on them. Your abilities are activated by tapping them, like you would a magic card. That's pretty fun. That's a game that I played recently that I really enjoyed. That's not one of mine.
How about you, Bri? Have you played many tabletop systems?
I have. I don't know what many is. I've played more than 5. I will say. I've played more than 5. Most of what I've played is D&D. I think that goes for a lot of people. But I've played a lot. I've also played a lot of Cypher System. I've played a lot of the Kids on Bike system. I've played. Oh boy. I mean, I've played one-shots of a lot of other systems too. Mostly one-shot specific games, but like of like many games that I've played, I think I've done a lot more play testing than I have done playing.
Not many people can say that.
No. I'm like, when have I played a game? I mean, I've played it. The last time I played a game for fun and not for work, was in December, which was a like Final Fantasy sort of cool.
Icon.
Icon, yes, thank you. We played Icon, which was really cool. I really liked playing. I fell in love with the character I made, but I think my favorite like system to play in terms of just like how much fun it is and how like silly you can get with it is the Kids on Bike system with like your stats or your dice. I love that so much.
And you heard it here, folks. Bri does not consider this playing games with friends. She considers it work.
I mean, it is with friends. I'm just saying. It's work. I'm doing marketing.
Yeah, there is like a
compartmentalize, okay? fun while working. God, Jesus. I could make friends while working. I'm an introvert. I have to justify my social interaction, okay?
There's a budget. Like in the introvert like filing system. There's like a budget spreadsheet for energy.
Yeah, and I can exceed the budget if it's for work.
You're like, if I trick myself into thinking that it's not the same kind of social interaction, then I will perceive it differently, which will allow me to draw from a different set of power banks.
Yeah.
That does not relate back to creative audacity at all.
No.
That is completely separate.
I'm very healthy.
The most healthy.
Most healthy.
Many say you are the most healthy.
Famously.
Oh my gosh, you are right, and I need to talk to someone about this. I need a therapist.
I listen. I'm beginning to become sleepy, but in the immortal words of Vidicia Valetti, games.
I'm also getting sleepy, which is why I'm playing with this little thing.
I know. That's right. I have my little fidget frog.
That's a wonderful frog.
He's so good. Like this is he's knitted, crocheted. Hooks, not needles. He's got a little stress ball inside. So he's adorable as is. He's very round. Feels good to hold in your hand, but also if you give him a little smoosh, he goes blep.
It's very good.
Blep. Yeah. This is just show and tell now. I have several fidgets at my desk. The other is this very like flat frog. It's very dense. And just kind of feels good to like manipulate.
I have not been playing with this off screen for a while. Not at all.
I had to put the dice away because I realized the mic was probably picking them up occasionally, going click clack, click clack, click clack, click clack. As I was circling them in my hand, I was like, I should put those away.
We're all neurodivergent here.
Yes, we are. Not. You know, I have friends who say a warning sign that you may be autistic is, do you get along well with Worm? If the answer is yes, maybe you should see someone about that.
Thank you, Emily. Have a very good night.
Yes, I was actually going to start this kind of winding down, as we've been going for about as long as we probably would have gone if this were a game. Either way, lots of fun. I'm glad we were able to pivot and do this. Whether this be work or not, we do indeed actually all like each other, which is, wonderful.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, so we're definitely gonna have to reschedule this. What tonight was supposed to be, and that's a conversation we'll need to have at some other time, and obviously more future collaborations, because why not? Again, we like each other.
I like playing games here.
Yeah, it's great.
Have you guys actually read my little description of what I want people to imagine when they're in my stream?
No, I don't think so.
I'm reading it now.
Yeah, it should be just right down there.
While you are here, imagine we are in a basement with wood-paneled walls and brown carpet. On one side is an ugly, lumpy old couch that is more or less facing a coffee table with a small TV with faux wood paneling on it, and with a console connected to it. On the other side of the room, there's a work area. The desk next to it is a door and the rest of an unfinished basement. A well-loved, stained to hell and back, self-healing mat takes up the middle of the desk, lamps in either corner aimed at the mat. Between the lamps is a multi-story paint organizer. On the left side is unfinished mini painting projects. On the right side are Lego projects. Sitting in the middle of the space is a table surrounded by chairs, dice, character sheets, LED minis, battle map, cans of pop, and snacks. Feel free to peruse the books, drink the pop, munch on the snacks. We're here to enjoy sharing the space with friends. That rules.
That's lovely.
It is also based on an amalgam of basements I was actually in as a kid, because one of the things when you grow up in the 90s is when you grow up in the 90s in the Midwest, there are some decades old basements. No basement is fully finished, and maybe it was finished that decade, maybe the decade before, or the decade before that, or the one before that. I mean, sometime in the last 30 years, part of the basement was done. The absolute worst, however, is popcorn ceilings. If you ever had a popcorn ceiling,
Yep. Yeah. That's the popcorn ceilings at my parents' house.
Luckily,
this house is 120 years old, by the way.
I was actually just going to say, luckily, I don't have to deal with that because my house is 102. But apparently...
See, I don't think it had it until like the 2000s because this place got the landlord special before we moved in. So I think the popcorn ceilings are relatively new.
So as fun as it is to scrape all the popcorn off, that is actually not recommended because they're toxic.
Yep.
But that little faux wood paneled TV, black and white, that is where I first watched Star Trek. It is based on an actual TV. It had a 3-inch screen. Or maybe it was 5-inch. It might have been a 5-inch TV.
Yeah, the little screen.
I very rarely sat on the couch that was facing the TV because you couldn't make out details.
Nope.
So I sat. There was a coffee table between the couch and the TV, and I sat on the coffee table. But yeah, no, that's the space that I want to foster here, and that includes bringing friends in and doing tabletop games, which I've been doing. Which is why we're doing another one on Saturday. Well, not tomorrow. A week from tomorrow, and I want you guys to be in more of them. Although you guys are busy because you make games.
Yeah.
God, I'm just trying to be here to be like, okay, my work is going to be playing tabletop games with friends.
Mm.
I'd love to play as often as I can.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's kind of end there. Other than people knowing where to find you guys, is there anything you want to share last minute? Anything coming up with you guys, or?
No, I think we talked through most of it while we've been here. If you think our stuff is cool, come check us out at games. All right, come check us out at games. Check us out at games. Check us out at games. We'll be at Gen Con. Be at Gen Con this year. So if you want to come see all of our stuff in person, and see us in the flesh space, you can do that at Gen Con this year.
And also check out our itch. Thank you so much for putting that up. That's a great place to find all of our games. If you want physical copies, you can find them on Indie Press Revolution, or you can go to itch and get our PDFs.
And all of us can be found on the Blue Sky because that is the not Nazi-run social media. It might be the only one right now.
Yeah.
We got a good 5 years at least before it starts being run by a Nazi.
So
Hopefully.
You can find me, Wayworn Worm. You can find Bri at Bri de Danann.
Yep.
Jon at Resident Bard, or you can find the company Bright Bard. Is it Breitbart Games? I don't remember what the exact.
It's
I think it's
Breitbart.
Breitbart Games.
Breitbart Games on pretty much all of our socials. I think our link tree is just Breitbart, but like
Yeah.
Breitbart Games.
Right? Yeah. If you look up Breitbart or Breitbart Games, you'll find us. It's unique. It's unique enough.
And then what I'm also going to do is if anyone watching wants to join my currently mostly dead Discord, you can. I do try and post stuff there, including what I am doing. I will also be in the next month, just over, I will be doing 2 24-hour streams. I will be doing one just for fun in March, and then the first Sunday of April, I will be doing my yearly 24-hour birthday stream, because my birthday is coming up in a month and 2 days. Well, more than that, because March is 31, but the 2nd of April, the 33rd of March. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to figure out who we're going to raid, but good night.
Good night.